Hello everyone and welcome back to another video tutorial. In this video tutorial, I'll be demonstrating how to draft a torso sloper by converting a waist length front basic bodice into a front torso basic bodice. Both slopers are considered a basic bodice with a slight difference between them. The difference between a waist length basic bodice and a torso basic bodice is that, of course, waist basic bodice, as its name, stops at the waist, and torso basic bodice stops at the hip. The torso sloper is also referred to as a blouse sloper or dress sloper because you can use it to sew a blouse and also use it to sew a short or long dress. You will just need to extend it past the hip line to your desired length, whether above the knee, at the knee, or below the knee. There are many different drafting methods that can be used to create the torso basic bodice. One method is to turn a waist length basic bodice into a torso basic bodice, which is what this tutorial is about. Instead of drafting a new torso sloper from scratch, you could just convert your waist length sloper into a torso sloper. Turning the waist length sloper into a torso sloper is quite simple. To start, you will need two measurements, your hip depth measurement and your front hip arch measurement. The hip depth measurement is measured at the side, and this measurement is used to draft the front and back sloper. The hip depth measurement is measured from the waist to the hip level. The hip level is the widest part at the hip area. The second measurement you will need is the front hip arch measurement. Your front hip arch measurement could be measured from side seam to side seam at the front plus half an inch ease, or measure the waist circumference plus 2 inches of ease divided by 4 minus 1/4 inch. Use whichever formula or calculation you're more comfortable with. Next, cut out a paper that is wide enough to cover the width of your basic bodice plus half an inch seam allowance and long enough to cover the length of your waist length basic bodice plus the extended hip length. Starting at the neck, cut out the half an inch seam allowance all around the pattern, but do not cut out the 1 inch center front line on the pattern. A good advice before you cut into your basic bodice sloper is to transfer a copy of the original one onto another paper for safekeep, or you could use the copied one to draft your torso sloper or vice versa. To learn how to transfer a copy of your basic bodice onto another paper, watch my video on how to transfer a basic bodice onto paper. I will leave the link in the description box below. When you get to the waist seam allowance, cut along the straight line at the waist rather than the waist curved line. Next, draw a 1 inch center front line along the lengthwise edge of the paper. This 1 inch line will be aligned with the 1 inch line on the sloper. Make sure the edges of your paper are straight. Next, align the 1 inch line on the sloper with the 1 inch line on the paper. This ensures that your sloper is straight and not skewed. Tape down with pieces of tape to secure your sloper onto the paper. Make sure you leave enough room at the neck and shoulder area for the half an inch seam allowance. Starting at the waist, measure or draw a line that is the length of your hip depth. Then from that point, measure or draw a line that is the length of your front hip arch measurement. To get your front hip arch measurement, measure from side seam to side seam at the front plus half an inch ease, or use your hip circumference plus 2 inches ease divided by 4 minus a quarter. Like I said earlier, use whichever formula or calculation you're most comfortable with. Then from that point, square upward or draw a guideline to the waist point like so. Then from that point, draw a line that is 3¼ inch long towards the waist point. That 3¼ inch line should stop exactly at the waist point. If it does, then you don't need to do anything before you proceed on to your next step. But if it doesn't, then draw a line that is from that 3¼ inch point towards the first side seam dart leg like so. My 3¼ inch line doesn't stop exactly at the waist at side seam, so I needed to draw a line from that 3¼ inch point towards the side seam first dart leg. I zoomed in closer so you could see what I mean. You could see that there's a tiny gap between the waist and the 3¼ inch point, so that is why I needed to draw a line from that 3¼ inch point to the side seam dart leg. Then from that new point, draw a curve with a curved ruler to draw the hip curve. Starting at the waist, create an identical dart at the hip that is 4½ inches long. Your dart should have a diamond shape. The next and final step is to trace all around the sloper and then add ½ inch seam allowance all around. So here I'm just going to start tracing the sloper, starting at the waist point all around to the neck point, and then when I'm done with that, I'm going to add my ½ inch seam allowance all around the sloper all the way to the hip level. Once I finished tracing all around the sloper, I started adding my ½ inch seam allowance all around. One last thing before you're finally done. Use a curved ruler to curve your waist. Okay everyone, we've come to the end of this tutorial. If I have made drafting a basic bodice a little bit easier to understand and helped further your fashion designing experience, please give this video a thumbs up. Until my next video, bye everyone.